I do think a platform that will start to take off in the influencer marketing community is Reddit. So when you think about community building and you think about being able to speak directly with consumers, not a brand, you think about Reddit. There's a lot of positive sentiment when it comes to going viral. And while, that's a really popularized notion, what we've also find that could actually hurt your engagement. And I think one thing I want to add to that is a new term that we've kind of introduced is micro-virality, which is when you and that's something that we like to achieve.
Welcome to the Ready, Set, Click podcast, where we talk digital marketing strategies. Grab a coffee or something a little stronger and settle in for this episode.
Hello and welcome to the Ready, Set, Click podcast. I'm your host, Paul Kahn, and with me today is Eileen Kwok. Eileen is the Social and Influencer Marketing Manager at Hootsuite. Welcome, Eileen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, so you're in New York. You came in from Vancouver.
Yeah.
And what brought you to New York originally?
Yeah, no, I'm here for Social Media Week.
Very fun.
Yeah, no, I love New York. Any chance to get the opportunity to come out here. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Did you do anything exciting while you were here?
No, for sure. We did our very first in real life creator activation.
Very cool. So let's talk about that. What was the idea behind it?
Yeah, for sure. So we had this amazing idea to have a ball pit in our activation at Social Media Week.
Okay.
So because it's in New York, we thought what was, native to the area. If you think of a New York museum, it always has a ball pit. So we were like, why don't we make our own? The theme for our activation this year was social listening. So we created the social sentiment dive. We had ombre colored balls, which represent different emotions, aka different sentiment when it comes to social listening. We had positive sentiment, negative sentiment. And essentially, it was such an amazing and aesthetically very beautiful ball pit. So we wanted to do something with it. And we thought, why not work with a creator to get more visibility and traction towards our booth?
Okay.
Yeah. So we worked with a creator called Brett.
Mm-hmm.
Brett is the founder of Creator Economy NYC. It's essentially a hub that connects creators with brands. And when I spoke at Creator Economy Live a couple months ago in Vegas, he was actually the host.
Uh-huh.
I connected with him there. He's an amazing speaker. He's really good at rallying a crowd, essentially. So we worked with him to conduct man on the street interviews or man at the booth interviews.
Man at the booth interviews.
Yeah.
Of course. Why not?
So he invited people to join our ball pit. And we asked them what their social media hot takes were. And our editor is actually taking them and splitting them up into quick clips right now to get out on social. We're also going to run them as ads to promote Hootsuite listening, which is one of our core features. And this is the first time we're doing anything like this, so I'm very excited about it.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So can we get any sort of, this is probably going to run after your ads start going.
Yeah.
So what was like the most interesting social media hot take you had at the ball pit?
No, that's a really good question. Think about that. I think what was really interesting was the notion of virality.
Mm-hmm.
So what we asked some of our interviewees is there's a lot of positive sentiment when it comes to going viral.
Mm-hmm.
But as social marketers, we always know that's an incredibly hard mission to task a social marketer with. And going viral.
Go viral, right? Like,
yeah,
how does
that's all I hear.
Yeah.
It's all I hear day and night. And while, that's a really popularized notion, what we've also find, and if for anyone that's read our social media trends report, it tends to have a negative connotation to it actually, because even though you're reaching a lot of people, you're not directly reaching your target audience. So that could actually hurt your engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to ask other social marketers, is it a good or bad thing? Do you like the notion of going viral? And there are a lot of mixed emotions about it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of marketers say, hey, well, it's a good thing. If I'll take the extra numbers and the extra views. Other people said, it's a challenge and they actually don't want to go viral. It inflates their numbers. They're not able to keep up that amount of views week over week. It's gonna lead to decaying views over time anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just reaching or getting a lot of followers that don't know your product, that don't really care about your product, and will eventually unfollow you in the long run. So that was kind of a very insightful and interesting conversation.
I mean, it is really interesting to reckon. I mean, the notion of virality goes back quite a way. So it's like, 10, 15 years ago, that was the only goal for a lot of companies and a lot of people was like, how do I become the thing that's the trending topic on Twitter or something like that?
Yeah.
Obviously, the world is very different now. But that's really interesting.
Yeah. And I think one thing I want to add to that is a new term that we've kind of introduced is microvirality, which is when you go viral within your niche.
Okay.
And that's something that we like to achieve. So if I put out a piece of content and a bunch of social media marketers, which is who we target, if they're engaging with my content, if they're sharing it out, that means I achieved microvirality, which is something that I aspire to. If I'm getting a bunch of spam comments or bots commenting back, I did go viral, but not for the right reason.
Okay. So it's almost like you want to be driving the conversation and you want as many people as possible, so long as they're in that group of people that you are actually trying to influence. Because at the end of the day, that's a lot of what we're trying to do here.
No, for sure. Because we've put videos out there that are very humorous in nature, and we've received comments like, what does Hootsuite even do? Which is a good and a bad. It's good for awareness. Now you know who we are, and maybe now you'll take the time to research about what we do. But at the same time, are you someone that is going to find value in a lot of our content? I don't know. That notion itself was very interesting.
Okay. So, you're coming for Social Media Week, but I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about your journey, to where you are today. So when did you actually start at Hootsuite and what was your role?
Yeah. So I started 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated during the pandemic, which is the worst time to ever graduate. Unfortunately, no one was really hiring at that time. I was going through internship after internship, and then I saw the role at Hootsuite open up.
Mm-hmm.
It was a junior position. I got hired as a social marketing coordinator, and one of my first projects actually was to kickstart our TikTok channel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this was back in 2021 when TikTok was all the rage, and this is when brands start to really hop into that platform for the first time. So a lot of what I was working on was creating content, being in front of the camera, which was something I was not used to, creating videos.
Doing dances or?
Thankfully not.
Thankfully, no.
Yeah.
I mean, they tried to get me to do stuff on our TikTok channel. I was like, no dancing. Sorry.
Yeah, so we worked on that. That was a really fun project for me to work on. And as I continued to move up, we were always looking for ways we can obviously scale our social media marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I saw an opportunity with influencer marketing. So just to give you a history on Hootsuite's influencer marketing journey, in the past, we used to work with a lot of Instagram and TikTok creators.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a lot of campaigns where we would use them as talent within our video. And these weren't necessarily influencers that were social marketing experts. They were just well-known creators, whether they're in the lifestyle or gaming or challenge space. We just wanted to work with big names and drive traction and awareness that way. That didn't prove to be the most successful strategy for us. So we decided to shift gears. So influencer marketing got put on a pause for a bit. Until 2023, where actually LinkedIn really took off. There was no influencer marketing on that platform yet, but I was seeing more and more people post on LinkedIn. People were getting more personal and fun, and corporate marketing was less of a thing on that platform. So I kind of had the idea of, I haven't seen any brands do influencer marketing on LinkedIn. Why don't we test it out? I built a case and I secured a modest budget to work with a handful of creators. At that time, we had our social media career report. This was Hootsuite's report all about the career of a social media manager. It talked about the highlights. It talked about challenges, pay, a lot of things that are very insightful, because I do think the career of a social media manager is still relatively new.
So funnily enough, I think we had Ben Cathers come here to actually talk to us about that like last year when we had him and Jared Love, who we also work with at Hootsuite, came to New York to actually talk to us about that report a little bit, which was very exciting. Sorry.
Yeah. So what I loved about that report, it was because it was all about the emotions of a social media manager, something that I'm really close to because I live and breathe social media as well. So the idea that we had here is, what if we created custom Hootsuite whiteboards? We sent that out to, I want to say 10 creators, and we had them write their own hot take on the whiteboard. So I got inspired with Dude with a Sign, which we all know and love on social media. And he's just known for writing hot takes, walking around New York, holding up the sign and snapping a pic and posting it online. So we thought we'll do the same with our creators. We had people write a host of different things. Some people wrote, social media is not an intern's job. Social media is not all about going viral. everything everyone wrote were highly relatable social media marketing takes. They got that up on social media, and essentially it spread like haywire. It was incredibly successful. I want to say we were one of the first brands to hop to do influencer market on LinkedIn. So now I see a lot of other competitors and other like B2B brands on LinkedIn, which is cool to see. But yeah, I like to say we had first mover advantage there. And it was just amazing to see a bunch of other social media managers comment back on their posts saying that they felt seen, they felt heard and understood. And that was a personal goal for myself as well. I believe that had over 500,000 in reach. The click-through rate, the content downloads we received were the highest that we've ever seen when working with influencers. So now a lot of our strategy is working with these LinkedIn creators.
Which is really interesting. So I want to take a step back, because normally here at Upfluence, we do have B2B clients, and we do work with them. But a larger percentage of the people we're working with are kind of marketing agencies, brands, things like that. So more in the B2C space. So I'd love to hear from you, like if someone's trying to put together a robust B2B influencer strategy, right? Like what are some things to look at, and what are some verticals that they might not even be thinking about utilizing to drive that success?
When you mention verticals, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, so you obviously are driving success with the program that you're talking about, with the whiteboards. But I know that at Hootsuite, there is a large employee advocacy program that also is running on LinkedIn, as well as efforts from leadership.
I think what's so exciting about LinkedIn is the way we think about influencers on that platform is about to change. So I talked a lot about LinkedIn creators, but what I also see on the rise is employee-generated content. In fact, according to research, employee-generated content actually leads to a 200% higher click-through rate compared to a normal company post. So we're seeing a lot of success there. Our CEO, Irina, actually is a LinkedIn creator in itself. Everything she gets out is amazing, and she really is striking a chord with a lot of social media managers, because her vision is all about getting other social marketers a seat at that table. So she's an executive leader that understands the struggle of being a social media manager. And so we have a lot of, prospects commenting back and really resonating with her content, which I think is incredibly powerful. I do think some of the smartest LinkedIn strategies moving forward is going to infuse both employee-generated content and LinkedIn creators. LinkedIn creators are there to enforce credibility and trust, and then we have employee-generated content that reinforces that as well. So I think using both of those hand in hand has been proving really successful. Something I also do at Hootsuite is I manage our employee advocacy program. So a lot of my role is all about essentially being able to drive influence. So whenever we have a big campaign launching, I think about what is our LinkedIn creator campaign going to look like, but also how do we activate our own employees and our own social sellers? Like, is there a way we can kind of meet together? And so that's kind of how I approach it when it comes to creating these B2B campaigns.
So how do you see the definition of success changing over time in influencer marketing, especially in the B2B space?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when you think about working with influencers, it's all about awareness. So you think about top of funnel metrics like reach, impressions, engagements. And while that's still a really good tactic, when it comes to B2B influencer marketing, especially on LinkedIn, I think it's best primed for convergent campaigns actually. So when we approach our campaigns, we think of more bottom funnel metrics like link clicks, content downloads, trials, demos, things of that nature. What I really love about LinkedIn is it's where all the credible thought leaders live. So when I'm working with a creator, it's because they're an actual expert in the field. They live and breathe social media. They've used so many different social marketing tools in the past. So when they recommend something, it's very, very authentic. So that is a cool fact about that. As well, I think what we're seeing is a shift away from vanity metrics and more of those bottom funnel metrics. So yeah, I think that's kind of the direction we're seeing influencer marketing head in, especially when it comes to LinkedIn.
Yeah. And I just want to say we're seeing that same thing, not only in the B2B space, but in the B2C space, where the companies that are really crushing it are really doing the same thing that you're talking about, looking at bottom of the funnel metrics, looking at sales, looking at intent, looking at clicks, all of that, not so much, hey, how many people actually saw this? Because at the end of the day, that's nice. And someone somewhere is going to be like, wow, what a great number. But really at the end of the day, we want to know how it's actually driving business and in a successful way. So one thing that is very different about doing B2B influencer marketing compared to B2C influencer marketing is the reliance on platforms like LinkedIn. Now, we at Upfluence, we don't have data about LinkedIn at the moment. That's partially because LinkedIn has been very protective of how you can sort of utilize their platform. So what are some of the challenges that go with that in terms of being able to really find the right people or contact them, things like that?
Yeah, for sure. I would say looking for the right creator on LinkedIn is especially hard because of those limitations that we just talked about. But I think what is hard is when you're working with a LinkedIn creator, you have to understand these are working professionals. Right. So when you think of a TikTok or Instagram creator, for example, usually that's their full-time job. They're a full-time influencer. When it comes to LinkedIn creators, they could be, marketing managers. They could be a CEO. Like they have their own company or brand that they're running. And usually influencer marketing is something they do on the side. So one big challenge for me has been communication. I understand they have an incredibly busy schedule. So usually when they respond, it's after work hours. So it's being able to adjust and work around the clock. But at the same time, I would say it's a pro because they understand working relationships. Like they understand email etiquette. It is also very easy to work with them at the same time. So that has been really cool to see. That's a very significant difference I found when working with like your standard influencer compared to these LinkedIn thought leaders. And I would say what's really important, especially when working with LinkedIn creators, is authenticity. So, what is really hard when it comes to justifying working with Instagram and TikTok creators for me is because they are constantly promoting different products and tools left and right. It feels more of a cash grab, where when it comes to LinkedIn, I think creators are more thoughtful when deciding which partnerships they want to pursue and which ones they want to hold off from.
Well, there's also a reputational cost on LinkedIn in a kind of a different way because, we often, and one of the things that we let people do utilizing our platform is we can actually see how well someone's doing on their brand partnerships on Instagram and on TikTok, which is a very helpful piece. And that helps you sort of steer away from people who are like just advertising everything under the sun. But on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is really based on your in real life reputation as much as your offline, your online reputation as much as your offline reputation. So I think that's a piece. Are there any other challenges? Like maybe you find the perfect creator, but they're working for a company and the company has some rules about what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do? Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, we've contacted some marketers that work for some pretty big name brands and they're just not allowed to, partake in any of our paid partnerships. Another thing is competitors. When we first started, we were the first ones, so we kind of had first grabs, but now a lot of our competitors have entered the space. One thing that's really hard is when, I don't know what's in the contract, but there could be a non-compete clause in the contract, and that could make things incredibly hard.
And what sort of tools are you using for your own brand safety within that? Like, how are you reviewing people on LinkedIn to see, are they working with a competitor or are they doing some of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So not to be too promotional, but obviously I use Hootsuite listening. And what's been really cool is I'm able to see exactly the type of sentiment that is that's attached to their content, whether it's positive or negative. What type of themes and content do they speak to? Because obviously we want to be able to vet the influencer well before we decide to work with them. So we want to ensure what they stand for is aligned with our brand as well. What I can also do is review past partnerships to see what that performance looked like, whether the quality of content is something that aligns with what we're looking for. But also how I like to use it is a bit of a brand, not brand. How I like to use it is a bit of a campaign retro. So after the fact, I want to see how many mentions did we get online? And what's cool about LinkedIn and something that we're tracking now is earned mentions actually. So with our last campaign, which was our social media trends report, we sent these oversized newspapers to a lot of our creators and they posted They posted them online, and that was such a fun activation. And we got thousands of mentions online of people analyzing our campaign, talking about why they loved it so much, and providing a link to our report. So it was kind of like free earned media, which was really nice. And so what I did when using Hootsuite listening is I would search for Hootsuite and newspaper to see how many mentions had both of those keywords slotted in together, and to see the scale and reach we were able to scale, reach, and impact we were able to make, not only within LinkedIn, because that's where the campaign was run, but outside of as well, and to see which medias or which newsletters it got to be a part of as well, to see the scale of the amount of people that we were really able to reach.
Well, that's really fun.
Yeah.
And then how are you thinking about these relationships? Obviously you're doing activations in various different places, but what type of relationship are you building with these people? Are they longer term? Are they for a single activation? How are you thinking about that as you go?
Yeah, for sure. So when I went to Creator Economy Live, which was very insightful, because I never got the opportunity to speak directly with other influencer marketing managers. But one thing that I learned that was really pivotal was working with creators long term. So when we first started, we would work with creators as a one-off opportunity for big campaign moments. But what I found now is what we've been able to do is build more of an evergreen campaign. So in the past, when we would work with creators for one-off opportunities, for 1 month, our mentions would spike, the results would look amazing, and the second month, it would just be crickets because we're not running anything anymore. So we've actually introduced our very first quarterly influencer campaign, where every quarter we're working with a host of influencers to promote a report or a product from Hootsuite. And then we created a campaign called Social Media Help Desk. So we're recruiting these creators as social marketing experts. We're letting them take over help desk, provide guidance and advice directly to their audience as well. And that just makes sure that we always have a touch point with these creators. When it comes to long-form partnerships as well, I think when you're working with a creator over and over again, over time, your brand will have an association with that creator as well. So when you think of your favorite social media marketing creator, hopefully you think of Hootsuite because we've worked with them over and over again. And that also means outside of a paid partnership, they're willing to promote Hootsuite every now and then. So maybe they're doing a roundup of products that they love, or a roundup of resources that people should check out. They're more likely to mention Hootsuite without being paid just because they're preferred partner. So that's the kind of association we want to be able to have with our creators over time.
Okay. We've talked about a lot of the things that you've been working on over the past 2 years as you've grown this as a real acquisition source for Hootsuite. I guess my question is, what do you think is next? Yeah. How do we keep growing? How does the market mature even more?
Yeah, I would say there's a host of different things. I think the first thing I could talk about that I was very skeptical about first is I'm seeing more B2C brands enter the LinkedIn space. So that was something relatively new, because 2 years ago, it was all about B2B brands on LinkedIn. We owned that space. But recently, I've been seeing people promote Stanley Cup on LinkedIn. They promoted a map.
Promotes Stanley Cup everywhere.
Yeah, and it's entered LinkedIn. People are promoting mattresses as well on LinkedIn, and people are also promoting cookies and other types of CPG products.
Like what kind of cookies? Let's get into it. Yeah. Who's the cookie brand you're seeing on LinkedIn?
Yes, so actually, Sweet Lorenz.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a cookie dough brand. So I was on a webinar recently with Sophie Miller, who's the founder of Be a Little Marketer. She's also a preferred Hootsuite partner, I want to say. So on the webinar, Inara who's a social media manager at Sweet Lorenz, was there, and she talked about how for the first time they ran a LinkedIn campaign. I forgot the name of the campaign, but essentially the whole point of it was take a break from your computer, have a cookie. And apparently that was very successful. I think it is refreshing to see someone push something very fun and light, like a
well, sometimes you stick out by being different, right?
Exactly.
So I think that's kind of fascinating. Okay, so you're seeing some B2C brands trying to be successful on LinkedIn. What about B2B brands? Are they branching? Do you see branching away from LinkedIn to some other platforms?
Yeah, for sure. I think for B2B brands, I think what I'm seeing more is people are prioritizing community. And the best way to reach community is to meet people where they're at, which is in real life. Hosting creator dinners, bringing them out to conferences and activations and finding ways to work with them outside of social media, essentially. So we already talked about how we worked with Brett at Social Media Week. We're starting to see more of that. And the last thing I want to add is I think depending on the network, I think we want to find other ways we can work with the creator. So something that we've been experimenting a lot with right now is working with creators on YouTube. So YouTube is a great platform, especially when it comes to ranking high in certain keywords. So what we've done recently is we did our own word crawl and search for different keywords that are important to us and found the creators that are owning that space. And we've contacted them and we're hoping to work with them to create Hootsuite dedicated videos. And one thing to know is when you run these campaigns, the results, they're not going to happen overnight because the way YouTube operates is insanely different. But maybe 6 months or 1 year from now, that's when we'll take stock and we'll do a bit of a retro and see what those video views and what that reach looks like. Because maybe now we're ranking high in a certain keyword that we're really looking for. So, I think I talked a lot about LinkedIn creators, but, long term, we want to be working with creators on different other platforms.
Yeah. So we have a lot of experience on the YouTube side, and it's, if TikTok is the place where you have 30 seconds, a piece of content goes live and it really exists for not 30 seconds, but a very short period of time in the consciousness. Yeah. YouTube, that content lives, the only platform where content lives longer is Pinterest. Yeah. Interestingly, Pinterest content, 2 years afterwards, people are clicking on. Yeah. But if you do a search on Google for a topic that is related to a specific YouTube video, you have a huge tail that goes with that. So you're getting traffic from that for years, as you said.
And I think for users that are seriously considering purchasing bigger ticket item like Hootsuite, for example, you're going to want to sit down and watch that 30-minute Hootsuite tutorial video. You want to learn exactly what the offerings look like. So I think YouTube is primed, especially for those high intent users. And the last thing I want to add is I think when we think about, let's say 1 to 2 years from now, I do think a platform that will start to take off in the influencer marketing community, and this is just my hunch, I don't have any examples to speak to it, is Reddit. So when you think about community building and you think about being able to speak directly with consumers, not a brand, you think about Reddit. If, you want a genuine recommendation from someone, you want authentic word of mouth marketing, Reddit is where it lives. Think in the future, there might be an uptick in Reddit creators. Maybe brands will pass over affiliate links. And I have a hunch that we'll start to see more influencers enter that space.
Well, I mean, you talk about micro-virality. Reddit is the king of micro-virality, right? You have this one subreddit where one thing will catch absolute fire. Yeah. And it won't necessarily make it to other places. Yeah. But if that's your target, if that's your audience, that can be really strong. Yeah. I also do wonder, one of the story of all marketing channels is when it's new, it feels fresh and it doesn't feel like advertising. Yeah. And then the minute people start to feel like it's advertising, they start to turn away from it, right? Yeah. And I do think we're seeing that in social. Obviously, we saw that many years ago on Facebook. So, it's really interesting because all of these different methods for reaching people, when brands get into them first, they feel fresh and they feel new. Yeah. But, as you were saying, everyone's now jumping into LinkedIn to try to do certain things. You have to stay ahead of where everyone is. Yeah. Right. And partially the fact that Reddit doesn't make it so easy makes it more likely to be successful. Yeah, I think so. If that makes sense. Yeah. And because if it's easy to make it commercial, then it's hard to stand out. Yeah. And I think that's a real piece. Everybody's role in tech is going to change tremendously over the next few years and has already changed over the previous few years with the rise of AI. Yeah. How do you think that is going to impact what you're trying to do in the B2B influencer space?
Yeah, no, I think it'll be incredibly valuable. So when I did the webinar with Vivian, a good point he made is to take stock and note of how long all these admin tasks are taking you. So right now, it's a really long, tedious process. I'm constantly emailing influencers left and right. I have a spreadsheet where I'm tracking if they responded, if the contract is signed, like every step of the way, I'm tracking that. And that is probably takes me around 5 hours a week. So, being able to notice that and being able to adopt AI and use a tool that is able to streamline everything is going to be incredibly valuable. So that only means, I'll be able to scale my program even more in the long run. I can work with more creators. I can be more efficient. And yeah, I think overall, I think it will be a huge benefit.
Okay. So one piece of that is the AI productivity side. The other piece is, what about on the content creation side? So obviously Hootsuite has a lot of tools that sort of are assistants in a sense, but one can imagine there's a world where AI is really helping out with content creation for influencers in the next couple of years as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's a hard one. There is a lot of pros and cons when it comes to using AI for creativity. When you look on social media, people are saying if there's a -m, that means it's written by ChatGPT. So, I do know that a lot of the creators we work with, they probably are using AI to some capacity to, write their content or write their sponsor post, which is a bit of a double-edged sword. I think it's great for productivity, but when it comes to creativity, it poses a bit of a challenge because I want the ad to be authentic. I want it to be written in their own tone and voice. And if you're using all these AI tools, it feels like it's less coming from you, but more from this tool. So I think that's a hard question for me to answer. Productivity side, 100%. I think it's a plus. When it comes to content creation, there are definitely some benefits there, but I still want to make sure that influencer's tone of voice and their personality is shining through.
Yeah. And in a weird sense, AI is too clean.
Yeah,
if that makes
it's very
sense.
polished. Yeah,
it's very polished, and people aren't polished.
Yeah,
in that way,
yeah.
And so you do end up at the moment, and this may change, and
Yeah.
they may figure out how to make things a little off.
Yeah,
But people are always a little off, and that's kind of what makes them interesting.
Yeah.
That's what makes us want to listen to them.
Yeah.
And also, as we're really looking at these communities, they are built around people and their authenticity.
Yeah.
So there is the concern about, if it's too easy and it gets a little boring,
Yeah.
people are going to shut it off, I think.
Yeah. And, I use AI myself, but the one thing I look for is I always take what they write and make it way more casual. I'm taking out the capital letters. I'm adding more exclamation marks. I'm adding emojis, or I'm like, maybe I'm purposely misspelling something because that's just the way that I write. And I want to make sure my tone and language really comes through. Or I'll ask, AI itself to, make it more casual, make it more personal and match my tone of voice. I've kind of trained it to like me. So I think those are the things I'm looking for when it comes to working with creators, making sure that, I understand that for productivity reasons, you could be using a tool like AI, but I want to make sure it comes from you. So when their followers read it, they're aligned with it and they really resonate with what they're putting out.
Okay. And the other piece that we did want to talk about today is obviously Upfluence and Hootsuite are very, very close partners. We get to go up to Vancouver. We get to go up to Toronto. Believe it or not, I've been to Luxembourg to visit the Talkwalker team.
Hey.
And we obviously are recording this in our office in New York today, but we have a really cool new integration that we're launching into Hootsuite of what we do here at Upfluence. So that will hopefully help everybody really streamline a lot of these kind of campaigns that they're trying to do because, as you were saying, spending hours on a spreadsheet is no fun. So hopefully we can help you out with that a little bit.
I'm sure.
So as we mentioned before, we are really strong partners with Hootsuite. And one of the things that I found really interesting was recently hosted a webinar with our CEO, Vivian, our co-CEO, Vivian. And I'm just curious from your side, was there anything that you found really interesting or that resonated with you in a similar way to some of the things that you're talking about today?
Yeah, I think first of all, I was so honored to be a part of that webinar. I felt like even though I was hosting it, I was like taking notes on the side. I was learning so much from Vivian. So that was such a cool experience. I think the main takeaway was the whole tracking side of things. I know a lot of other marketing managers can relate with the fact that we're always asked about ROI. We're always asked about results, and that can pose such a huge challenge. So when it comes to the tracking side of things, for example, you can use UTM links, you can use promo codes. There's so many other ways to flip it. But I think by using tools like Hootsuite and Talkwalker, really leveraging social listening is really important. I don't think it's something people leverage enough. And I don't think people understand that that's another way you can prove the ROI of what you're doing. You can track the number of mentions, so the number of times people are mentioning your brand name or your brand or how it's associated to a certain campaign, the sentiment that's geared toward that. You can crawl and see what people are saying on Reddit, what people are saying on Twitter to understand and gauge the wide scale of the wide scale that your campaign was really able to make. So that's kind of been my secret weapon whenever I'm doing campaign retros to really gauge the success of a campaign. I would say it's also really good from a feedback perspective. Maybe we launched a campaign and we missed the mark on something, and maybe there's a takeaway I can get from that as well. So from a learning context as well, it's incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and I think one thing that you're bringing up that I think is extremely important is iteration. Okay. Like if you're not iterating your campaigns, if you're not looking for ways to be better with the next campaign than you were with the previous campaign, you're missing an opportunity. For sure. And taking in that data point, whether you're using social listening to decide what's your North Star on your campaign. Was it how it was received in the community? Was it sales, which we can help you track here at Upfluence? But then saying, how do I increase that? And do I look at it on a creator by creator basis? Or is there something about the overall strategy that I can improve as we continue to move forward? I think that's the way that really strong marketing happens, is you basically say what worked, what didn't work, how do I make more of what worked happen and less of what didn't work, and go through.
Whenever we do campaign retros, like we always highlight this is what did really well, this is what didn't do well, and this is what I'm going to continue next time. So that's kind of what I always take a look at whenever I finish up one of those campaigns. When it comes to what we look at all the things you just mentioned. Obviously, with every campaign, we want to hit both awareness and conversion. So from the awareness standpoint, I use social listening to ensure how many mentions we're getting. For example, a lot of our campaigns made it to Ad Week or Ad Age. Like that is a good thing to take stock of. A lot of people read those articles. So that is incredibly powerful to leverage social listening for. From the conversion side of things, I'm really looking at what do the content downloads, what are the clicks and sessions, and what does the demo rate look like? Do
you track it past that? Do you track it to actual sales as well? Or is it more like getting people in the door?
So we do track at every stage. So I track engagements, but I track, out of the people that saw this post, how many people clicked into the post? Out of the people that clicked into the post, how many people actually filmed the form fill and downloaded that resource? Within the resource, we have a Hootsuite trial button. How many people actually clicked that button? Out of the people that clicked that button, how many people sign up for Hootsuite trial? And out of the people that sign up for the Hootsuite trial, how many people actually purchase the product at the very end?
Right.
So we have the ability to actually track it from the very start to the very end. Now, is a campaign always gonna bring in those bottom funnel results? Obviously not.
Right.
But we have seen success. We have seen some people actually purchase a Hootsuite product after seeing a Hootsuite influencer marketing campaign. And I think that's incredibly powerful. That's still such a huge challenge. Not every campaign is going to be able to do that. But I think being able to track something like that, we know this was really successful from a conversion perspective. Let's imitate that. Or, this is a product launch and we just want to bring awareness for it. It's not necessarily bottom funnel this time. This last campaign was proved very successful for that. So let's imitate that. So yeah, I think overall being able to see top, bottom funnel and the scale that we've been able to make has been incredibly insightful from my end.
Yeah. And it's so important because especially when you get that first sale sometimes, right? Like that, you're looking and, I obviously talk to my sales team all the time.
Yeah.
The first sale is the hardest sale you're ever going to get. The second sale is the second hardest sale.
Yeah.
But after that, it's just going to start rolling. And so if you've really cracked that nut, you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And so if people want to be like really in the know about the next Hootsuite influencer campaign, what's the best way they can know what's coming next?
Yeah. So follow us on LinkedIn. Follow our CEO, Irina. You can also follow me if you want. But by following those 3 things, you'll be the first to be informed when our next influencer campaign launches.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And you've been listening to Ready, Set, Click. I'm your host, Paul Kahn. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ready, Set, Click podcast. Love this episode? Hit the subscribe button, give us a like, or leave a review. Until next time.